Welcome to another episode of Grow with Glow podcast. In this episode, we're going to talk about how to stay healthy naturally and increase your influence with a patient and a good friend of mine, Geena Urango. Now, Geena is a professional pro beach volleyball player. She is in the sand and working on a regular basis to increase her influence on social media. She's a model, she's an actress, she has her own podcast, and she's got a ton of insight in how to stay healthy. But what I really liked about this particular conversation is Geena really sheds the light on important factors for recovery. She's an athlete, she plays year-round, she trains year-round. And in beach volleyball, what oftentimes happens, as it does in other sports, is sometimes people can overtrain. So Geena will talk about the science, the research into her training, how it is data-driven from the results perspective, and also one of the key factors that many people overlook, and that's the rest cycle. Specifically, the most important rest cycle, your sleep. She's going to talk about sleep and something that's always resonated with me, which is patterns that help you recover faster. You see, sleep is one of those things that becomes the dishwasher to the brain, helps clear everything out of the cache, so the next day you start fresh and clear. But oftentimes, interrupted sleep, broken sleep, and insomnia can actually lead to some very hazardous outcomes for people. So Geena's going to talk about the changes she made with her sleep, and I'll save you a little bit of the mystery. Total darkness is how it should be. In fact, one of the rules of thumb for people who travel frequently is your room should be so dark you cannot see the hand in front of your face when the lights are out. No curtains open, no lights peeking in, and she'll get into the specifics of how she does that, how she accomplishes it, but a whole bunch more. So really excited to share with you a pro beach volleyball pioneer. She'll explain some of the early days of where her passion came from and also how she was self-taught in many areas. She's an athlete, I would say, has maximized almost fully her full potential. You see, some people are gifted naturally and it can allow laziness. Geena recognized she wasn't going to be the tallest, she wasn't going to be the fastest, so she works extra hard. If you like the underdog principle and philosophy, then you're going to love this interview and sit down with her. She's found ways to harness and maximize her raw gifts and talents, to hone her skills, and really become an elite athlete based on her work ethic. You're going to love this conversation. You can apply this to your children. You can apply this at home, and hopefully have you live a healthier, happier life naturally. And again, on the social influence side, give her handle a check out, follow her, click her podcasts individually, the ones that I'm not on, and you're going to learn a lot as well from the world of pro beach volleyball, if in fact beach volleyball is your jam. Check it out, a patient of mine in my chiropractic practice and a good friend, but also a health enthusiast, Geena Urango. Hey everybody, I'm super excited to have Geena Urango here with us today. She is a pro beach volleyball player on the AVP tour. She's been an active member of my practice for years. She's a phenomenal advocate for the products and services and a picture of health. I'm super excited to have you here because you also have your own podcast.
I do. I'm excited to be here and be on the other end of it.
Right on. So when I'm done, I want to be critiqued.
Okay, perfect.
Give me the takeaways. I'm excited because you grew up around here playing beach volleyball.
I did. I went to Los Alamitos High School, born and raised in this area. And I played my first beach tournament in Seal Beach.
Right on.
So that was over 20 years ago.
Is it fair to say you were part of the movement 20 years ago that made beach volleyball super popular like it is today?
Yeah, I mean, I like to think that when I first was playing, there weren't like beach volleyball clubs or those types of opportunities. And I made an effort to go down the beach. My mom would drive me down to Huntington Beach Pier. I'd have my one ball under my arm and I'd go and play pickup games. And that's kind of how I learned the sport was by teaching, learning from these players at the beach and then kind of more or less just teaching myself a little bit. But I was the first ever beach volleyball scholarship recipient for collegiate beach volleyball for USC. So I played 4 years of indoor, and then I played a fifth year of beach, the inaugural year of the sport. And so I feel like that's more of where I pioneered was, the collegiate space of playing at that level. So I feel very lucky and fortunate and honored to be that type of person. And
super cool.
But yeah, I mean, I love the sport. I've been still playing. But
I love those stories because 20 years ago, beach volleyball was not an Olympic sport.
Mm-hmm.
Coming through and having the desire to show up at the beach with a ball and just playing pickup, I'm guessing men and women, grown adults and kids, and just kind of like getting thrown into the mix. But you'd have to be tough enough to just kind of take your lumps, and you'd have to love the sport enough to want to keep playing.
Totally. Yeah. And I pride myself in being pretty like hard driven and my work ethic and all of that. And I've never been like the best. So I've always had to work harder to get to where I'm at.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, it's definitely paid off.
I love that because I think, the work ethic definitely outshines raw talent.
Mm-hmm.
And for anybody listening, that's huge, right? Like you can outwork your abilities if you really are dedicated to doing that. But also, 20 years ago, beach volleyball was not an Olympic sport. You played indoor, which was popular.
Mm-hmm.
But nowadays, there are more girls playing volleyball than actually girls playing basketball. Is that right?
Yeah. So you've seen a huge growth of the sport at the youth level for sure. And you're starting to see it into college level now too. And I think we were talking a little bit ago about like how tall these girls are playing the sport. I mean, and I was a 5'10" outside hitter, and now the girls are like 6'6" outside hitters. It's just crazy.
It's
insane. Yeah.
So, and I say the term girls correctly because we're talking like 8, 9, 10 youth sport players. There's more youth in volleyball than there is in basketball. And so in a matter of 4, 5, 6 years, that will be the case in college as well. And then beach volleyball really just kind of exploded. What would be the time frame on that? Because for you to play indoor, which is pretty much a different game, to the beach game, and you being the first scholarship athlete, USC, go Trojans, but to get a scholarship to play the beach game, that's one of those things. It's almost a different sport.
Yeah, it's totally different. Okay. I mean, it's 6 feet people versus 2. You're in the sand versus hard court. It's I think that what's so cool, or when that sport really took off, was when beach got added as a collegiate sport. So that was 2011 to 12 was the inaugural year.
Yep.
And I think there were maybe like 11 schools that had their program initially. Yep. And now there's over 150 schools.
Jeez.
And it's been 10 years, I mean, like each year there's just so many schools adding, which is so cool to see because now beach volleyball also has 6 scholarships that they can divvy up amongst the team. So there's that many more opportunities for girls to play at the level. And also it's great because now these youth players are choosing to play one or the other.
Right.
Or both, right? When I was growing up, it was like I pretty much just played indoor and then I went and played beach fun on my own. But now it's like girls are strictly just playing beach volleyball.
Super cool.
And then getting to play it at a high level.
And that timeline, I think, is important too because 2011, 2012 is when it became an NCAA sport. You and I have a mutual friend and admiration for Misty May Trainer.
Yes.
And I went to the 2012 Olympic Games with her. So as her chiropractor in 2012 in London. And obviously they dominated. She won her 3rd gold medal. But really the way she plays the game and the passion and the excitement and the crowds. I don't know if people have ever been to a beach volleyball game, but the crowds are something different.
Yeah.
It's a bit of a show sometimes in between sets. Like they'll play 30 seconds of a song, somebody's banging a drum, there's cheers, and everybody sits down. It's like the opposite of tennis.
Right. Tennis is a little bit more hush-hush.
Right.
It's
There's a small party in the crowds at beach volleyball, right? And so for the NCAA to have beach volleyball as a recognized sport, in 2011, 2012, Misty goes on national TV, wins her 3rd gold medal. And I'm going to say, as her advocate and also partly true, that the sport exploded after that.
Yeah, I 100% agree. And I think, obviously, she's been I've looked up to her my whole volleyball career. And I don't know, she's just done so much good for the sport. And I think also like having won 3 gold medals in a row, and also the fact that she came back after a serious Achilles injury after her 2nd Olympics too, which was that was also, I mean, her story is so cool. And it's also great because she's not the tallest player. Right. And for younger athletes to know like, wow, I can still excel and play at a high level, even if I am a little bit shorter.
Right.
And so, yeah, she's a great example of all that.
For sure. And blowing the Achilles and coming back in a jumping sport is like that unto itself. And she won her 3rd gold medal after blowing out an Achilles. So, again, for anybody listening, if you've got an injury, it's a setback, which just makes it available for a comeback and nothing bad. I want to talk about your rhythms and rituals a little bit because I think it's super key. And you're one of my favorite athletes by
thank
far.
You.
But just super gracious, like super intelligent. You appreciate your opportunities. And I always love pro athletes who appreciate like the pop of the glove if they're playing baseball, the crack of the bat, the swing of a golf club if that's your sport, but just the little nuances. And you've always in our conversations, like you come to life when we talk about beach volleyball. It's really fun. But also having to work harder, because I'm sure 99% of the people listening are saying, well, I'm not as gifted as so-and-so,
Right.
or I don't have the attributes of this person, or I don't have the height. And I think comparing yourself to other people, it's a victim's mentality.
Yeah.
Right? If you focus on what you can do, so anything goes, share anything you want. What are your performance habits? What are your routines? What is your rest and recovery cycle? And I know a lot about you, so you can take this however far you want, because it's super valuable for people to not just get pigeonholed into the thing, whatever the sport is. So that thing, sometimes you can do it to excess and it can lead to burnout.
Yeah. Burnout is a huge thing. And I think a lot of young athletes this is super important, because that's one thing that I've always tried to, part of my routine, right, is like having some balance in my life. So it's like, yes, of course, I train hard, I work hard. Volleyball is a majority of my life, but at the same time, I still try to do other things that help my mind, my mental, my mental game, all of that. So, but from a overall standpoint, like I obviously train a lot in the sand. I do a lot of strength and conditioning. My strength is very science driven though. So it's like I do a lot of testing every few weeks. So it's more of like injury prevention while still maintaining strength.
Talk about that a
mobility.
little bit.
Yeah, my trainer, he uses a force plate technology. And so it tests you do a vertical test on it and a few other different types of tests, but the vertical test more or less tests your load, explode, and drive. And it's really interesting to see the graph and the data. And it's, it's pretty high tech force plate, but then you see where you need adjustments, and he drafts you up a plan that helps bring up your scores where you're needed help. So for me, for example, I have a really hard time activating my glutes and my hamstrings. And so my first lift of the week is always directed towards that, where I'm feeling fresh and I can push myself in the weight wise. So that's like something that I do as far as off the court. I also, I love chiropractic work with you is great. I think that icing, like I try to do ice baths too, which I think is super great, not just for muscle recovery, but also like your blood and all the benefits that are.
Yeah, well, the inflammation is huge. And even getting that out there, it activates the brown fat, it increases the metabolism. But what I'm also hearing you say is you are attacking your weakness. Yes. So you scientifically figured out what body part needs to work. And then the first part of the week, you go after it. So it's not the beach muscles. It's not the ones that look good when you're doing modeling and photo shoots. You go at it early in the week. So even that, I think there's strategy to the science. Like, okay, when I'm fresh, I'm going after my weakness. And for anybody listening, it could be playing basketball. You want to dribble with your offhand first. You want to attack those weaknesses, because we always want to go to our strength that makes us feel good. But then even within the rhythms and the rituals of where you place that.
Yeah, no, that's a really good way of putting it. I never thought of it that way.
No, it's awesome.
Yeah.
What else do you do?
I also work with a sports psych pretty religiously too.
I love sports psychology.
Yeah. My sports psych is great, and he's very hands-on. And I've personally always struggled with, I'm my own worst critic. So I'm really hard on myself, and I've had to practice all these different ways to not be that way, and to be, we focus a lot on like mindfulness. So being present and finding this routine that I have to be able to, when I feel somewhat chaotic in the matches or out of my, like not present, is like those things that help me get back to it. So like whether it's taking a deep breath, having a moment of gratitude, digging my toes in the sand, feeling that sensation, little things like that allow me to play a little bit more free and find that flow state a little bit more easily than putting that pressure on myself to perform so well. So it's like less outcome focused.
I went to watch you play one time, and it was in an AVP tournament, and you were just warming up, and you were diving all over the sand, just like crazy digs just in the warm up. But it was like you're a cat-like athlete. So for you to be in a flow state, I would imagine would be a really positive thing.
Yeah.
To just be free enough to do that. Digging your toes in your sand, is that a mental trigger? Is that a positive trigger to just appreciate the moment and be like, hey, I'm playing beach volleyball?
Yeah, it's a little bit of that, and it's also a little bit of like taking my mind off of what had just happened and just like focusing on something else. So like the sensation of just this simply feeling the sand is a good way of me like forgetting, oh, I just made a hitting error. Like, wait, oh, look at this let me feel this sand.
Right on.
So it's a way of grounding me with taking my mind off of maybe what just happened.
Literally grounding you, but also you have as much sensation and dexterity in your toes as you do your fingers. And quite honestly, for a lot of people, that proprioception isn't done enough, right? Between shoes and socks and walk around, we don't.
Yeah.
So if you really focus on that, like, man, that's a different pathway to the brain to get you out of the stinking thinking. Because what happens with a lot of athletes, they make one mistake and it's quickly followed by another if they don't have those strategies.
Yeah,
right?
I know. Like old Geena would, I mean, granted, I'm not perfect. I have moments of weakness and moments where I know that I can improve. And looking back, I'm like, oh, why didn't I just take a deep breath there? So, but yes, it's recognizing like, okay, I'm going down this dark hole of errors and negative thoughts. And instead of trying to like judge myself about it, I'm like, okay, let me just sit and observe what these thoughts are and not acknowledge them, just kind of like watch them go by and then get back to the present. And it helps me reset. And,
I love that. Watch them go by. Right? Like you kind of did this with your hands, almost like a river, like here come the negative thoughts and there they go.
Yeah.
Which is huge for anybody listening because the brain's either a predictor of the future. You've gotten yourself to think at a higher level to not follow that pathway, or we always say it's a predictor of the past, right? So what you tend to do, you do more of and you get more of the results. You just watch the thoughts go by. Now you're working at a higher level because it's here.
Right. Yeah.
Super huge. Welcome to Grow with Glow, the show where we explore ways to stay healthy naturally and grow your influence. Today's episode is brought to you by Element, the clean salt electrolyte drink mix with everything you need and nothing you don't. There's no sugar, just the essentials for optimal hydration. Whether you're an athlete, busy professional, or just someone who wants to stay hydrated, Element is designed for you. So what sets Element apart? Well, it's the science-backed formulation. You see, Element is created by experts who understand the importance of electrolytes like sodium, potassium, and magnesium in maintaining proper hydration and supporting overall health. These electrolytes are crucial for muscle function, energy, and anything that makes Element stand out is its commitment to real, clean ingredients. You won't find any artificial sweeteners or flavors in here. Element is keto-friendly, paleo-friendly, and suitable for a variety of dietary preferences. And here's the best part. For our listeners, Element has a special offer. Your first purchase through the website and the link below in the show notes will get you an offer where a complimentary package is sent with the purchase of your first item. So again, use the link in the show notes, and when you make a purchase, you will get a complimentary pack at no extra fee. You're going to enjoy it. And again, it's paleo and keto friendly, keeping you hydrated. Love it. What else?
As far as my routine and everything I do, let's see. Getting outside is also really important for me. Obviously, I know I play beach volleyball and I train on the beach and outside or as is, but like, taking my dog for a walk, that helps ground me too. But yeah, and I obviously get routine massages as well. Diet, actually, not just diet, like my theory on diet is like everything in moderation.
Right.
So like I try to be like, okay, what is my body craving right now? And that's what it needs. So whether it's carbs or, fats or whatever it is. So I try to listen to my body and not necessarily pigeonhole myself in certain ways. But the biggest thing that I've become completely neurotic about, and my boyfriend can attest to that, is my sleep. And I am like, ever since I got the Oura Ring and I read the book, Why We Sleep, it changed my life. And then my boyfriend will come in late and wake me up, and I'm like, oh, you just woke me, and I'll be pissed off because you just ruined my 8 hours of sleep. But anyway, so I know how important it is, and I've done all of these things to increase, like since using the Oura Ring, like I noticed I had really very little REM, and I was like, okay, what are ways that I can do it or help increase that? And it's obviously having the same routine, going to bed at the same time, not looking at your phone before you go to sleep, not having caffeine late or eating late, alcohol, all that stuff. And I was like doing all those things, and I was like, why is this not changing? And then I started to read up a little bit more, and now every night I take magnesium, which is also great for muscle recovery as well. And I sleep with an eye mask.
Nice.
And the eye mask has it allowed me to be able to sleep like an hour longer without being sensitive to the light.
Yep.
And it's like now I'm getting great sleep every night.
I mean, that's like one of the top 3 things you can do is total blackout room or eye mask. If you're in a hotel, you've got to have blackout blinds as much as possible. I think that's the number one reason why people don't get good sleep. It's not totally blacked out.
Yeah.
You know, looking at the phone before bed, stimulating thoughts.
Yeah.
Even the light coming into your eyes, it's not appropriate, you know, before bedtime. And to me, I think sleep is a huge dysfunction for a lot of people. It leads to increase in diabetes, leads to an increase in heart disease. Cancers are more prevalent when people don't sleep well. Like, that's huge. So the book is Why We Sleep, Matthew Walker.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's so good.
And it's really cool because he even talks about, like, you know, the sleep bank account. Like, your body knows if you're deprived, and you have to do makeup sessions of sleep. And anyway, really good. But things like alcohol and big carb meals before bed, people go, oh, I'm going to have a glass of wine and pass out. You really don't. You know, you get sugar in your body, you get stimulated, you'll fall asleep, but you don't stay asleep.
Yeah.
So that's huge. I know you've done things with Pilates, you've done yoga, you keep yourself super healthy. Kind of shifting gears. You've got some really cool sponsors.
Oh, thank you.
You have a really cool connection now to Deion Sanders.
Let's
talk about Coach Prime. Let's talk about Coach Prime.
Prime time. I know. It was just so cool to see it all unfold. And I think, I mean, I have a really good relationship with Blenders. I've worked with them for 5 or 6 years now. And to see how much they've grown has been so cool. But I know a lot of the people who work there, and the owner, Chase, he's awesome. He's like my age. He started this company with like a $2,000 loan, and he's grown it into this multi-million, billion-dollar company. But it was like, I saw he posted these videos, and he was like, he went to the Colorado State game, and he was just with the fans, like watching the ESPN pregame.
Right.
And when The Rock came on, and he didn't know Dwayne was going to surprise. And he came on and he put on the sunglasses, and you see him like, oh my God, freaking out. Like, this is really happening. And like, it was so crazy to see that whole weekend. I mean, obviously there's been a lot of buildup of Coach Prime.
Sure.
He's been great. He's an amazing motivator, like what he's done for some of his athletes and stuff. But like Blenders, I mean, so
Blenders are glasses that you wear when you play.
Yes.
In the beach, in the sand, and you've been sponsored by them for years.
Yeah.
So shades.
Yeah.
The comment from the Colorado State coach was, "My mom taught me better than Coach Prime. You take your glasses off, take your hat off when you meet somebody, shake a hand." And it became a war of the words leading up to the game, right? So now we have this trash talk between the head coach of Colorado State, Colorado. Right. They go into this game, and now my guess is every Colorado State game for the next 10 decades, that's probably going to be the uniform for the fans.
Totally.
Right, like wearing the Blender shades, being in the crowd, wearing your hat, even if the game's at night, because he wasn't going to give the guy the satisfaction of taking the shades off, right? So what did they do in sales that weekend? Because it's kind of a fun story.
It was $4.5 million. They sold like over 70,000 units. And it's so crazy because it was just a pre-order on their website. So pre-order the Prime exclusive sunglasses, and they're so, I mean, obviously they weren't expecting it to blow up like that. And now if you pre-order, it's like you're not even going to get them till December because they have so many that they have to fulfill. So,
which is so cool.
It's so cool, yeah.
So it's just cool when people in business who are doing the right things and are good people wind up winning, right?
Totally.
So I know they've been really good to you. Obviously, Coach Prime was like this big risk and a big contract, and you know, Deion Sanders being in Colorado, nobody knew how that was going to go. And it's just kind of been a really cool story. So I knew you had that connection.
Yeah.
What are some of the other sponsors who've taken really good care of you?
Yeah, I've worked with Sharp Vision, Modern LASIK for a handful of years as well. They're awesome. I got LASIK from them. Cool. I still have 2015 vision, which is so crazy. And I also have Flex Power. It's kind of like if Icy Hot got separated into like a warm and a cool rub. The cool rub has like great benefits like arnica and CBD, and then the warm rub gets really hot. So if you're in pain and need to like numb anything, it's great before matches and stuff like that. Cool. And then I've also been working with Adapt Water, which is a really good coconut water base that has it's the only coconut water that I think is NSF certified. Oh, cool. Which is really cool because you can have it in schools and stuff like that.
Well, what's funny is public drinking water is not the best. And I don't think a lot of people know the amount of chloride and fluoride in water, and that's not good for you. In addition to, there's trace amounts of pharmaceutical medications they just can't get out of reclaimed water. So drink in general, tap water is not a good idea for anybody listening. And if you've got a plant-based coconut water, not only is it good, but your body assimilates it better.
Totally.
So what would be your advice for young female athletes in particular? Anybody listening to this, any words of advice going forwards?
Yeah, just any athlete in general. I just think it's like the one biggest thing I think that a lot of athletes learn too late is that like you are more than your sport. And so I think that like when you have older athletes that maybe retire and they go through identity crisis. So I think it's really important as like these younger athletes to not only remember that, but also to like know that you can do other things leading up into your adulthood to prepare yourself for when you are done playing your sport. Because granted, like we can't play our sport forever.
Right.
Our bodies aren't.
At a professional
Right.
level.
Yes.
Yeah.
But I think it's just really important to find other passions in your life as well. Because like, yes, for me, beach volleyball is amazing. I love it. It's done so much for me in my life. But I know that I'm more than just that.
That's right.
Yeah.
And I think and what this is called in communication is called self-efficacy. So your self-efficacy, if your total self-worth is tied to your sport, you retire, well, who am I? Well, you're already more than that. And part of why I wanted to sit you down is you illustrate that.
Oh,
you
thank
snowboard,
you.
you surf. I mean, I see photos of you traveling. And this is in the off season, not just with beach volleyball, which there's travel with that, of course. But you are already well balanced, which I think sets the table when you retire. You've got these other interests. But for anybody listening, there's even sports like the NFL. They have a program called the fifth quarter. And the fifth quarter is helping athletes really transition from the sport into, for lack of a better term, civilian lifestyle, out of the spotlight. I don't know how to describe it, but it's, in other words, when you're done playing, how do you move on with life? Because this has been who you've been,
Right.
but it's not all you are. And so this idea of self-efficacy, it's like how I define myself, is really important. But the fifth quarter, they basically help athletes start to shift and transition. But also, because that's a sport that's had a lot of head trauma and concussions and those things, there's some brain health issues that people maybe aren't making good decisions. Some of the normal blockers and filters, when the brain's been traumatized, people are more impulsive. And so just kind of understanding the sport that you're playing and what's going on. But also, I think when you retire, just knowing what you want to do, kind of setting yourself up now. And that's why I want to mention some of your sponsors, because I know they've been good to you. And I know beach volleyball is not yet a big booming sport. I think it will be, but you'll be one of the pioneers, just like you were as a child, showing up at Huntington Beach Pier with the ball. I'm just here to play pickup ball. It's like someone going to the basketball court, just here to play some pickup hoops, right? Like, I'm going to learn this, with my lumps and figure this out. But also, I think in the next 30, 40 years, it'll be a major sport. It's a party in the stands. It's a fun sport to watch.
Yeah, I hope so.
Yeah.
Because it deserves that. I mean, it's the most watched sport at the Olympics.
Yeah.
It's fun, so.
It's huge.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's huge. And I just think the things you do locally as well for the other athletes, even sitting down and sharing your podcast, like you've always got some really cool stuff going on beyond the volleyball. I've had a chance to adjust you courtside and sit there and watch you play. And I just, I'm amazed at the athletes flying around, and then to watch you win matches and, hit serves that absolutely dive bomb into the sand. I'm like, what are the physics with that? It's like a knuckleball that just drops, you're just crossing people up. So I always appreciate your candor. Thank you for sitting down and doing this with us.
Oh, thank you for having me.
Is there any last questions, anything I should have asked you, anything you want to mention, any shout outs before we go?
No, I appreciate what you do. And, with my podcast too, we aim at elevating the voices of women in sport. So I think it's important to not just highlight the athletes, but people, the team behind the team too.
Yeah.
So anyway, I just appreciate what you do, and thank you so much for having me.
My pleasure. I've got a daughter that plays lacrosse, and she's a scholarship athlete, and so I take it very seriously, the women in sports and just what it does, I think, for self-esteem and confidence, and part of that, knowing who you are. And, and that's also why I want to sit you down selfishly, is keep showing my two daughters positive role models, and you are certainly that. So,
thank you.
Yeah, I really appreciate it. Thanks for taking some time.
Of course.
Hey, everybody, if you enjoyed that episode, do us a favor and feel free to share it. If you don't want to miss future episodes, follow us. The Dr. Glow DC handle can be found on Spotify, iTunes, and YouTube. And some of the shorts and quick videos we put out really are just some of the high points. I feel like interviews such as Geena's can take you on a deeper dive and really give you all the backstory that you need to appreciate how far she's come in her journey, so that it helps you in your journey. She was a pioneer on the beach. She was the first one to get a beach volleyball scholarship at USC, and they're now national powerhouses. So many different ways and many different avenues to the top. And I would tell you there's plenty of room at the top. So be sure to share that episode, follow us on our social media handles, and check out Geena. She's got some great content, some super information coming out on a regular basis. And she's just doing a lot of good works off the court as well. Cheers. And until next time, we'll see you at the top.